Welcome to Enrichment Today podcast, hosted by Dr. Amy Christine Blansit. This podcast covers topics to build stability and find tranquility in your life. Join us to discuss topics to improve your financial health, change your limiting beliefs, improve your wellness, and so much more, all to increase your self-sufficiency. If you like this podcast, make sure to follow the Enrichment Today podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and follow the Drew Lewis Foundation on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. You can also check us out on our websites, enrichmenttoday.org and drewlewis.org. Now sit back, relax, and learn to break some crayons with us.
Welcome to Enrichment Today. We're back to talk about food and gardening and the importance of nutrition and what it can do to actually change your life. So when the Fairbanks was in its infancy, bought the property, and my niece was just graduating from architect school, and she drafted the ideas that I had been dreaming up. And so always, from the very beginning, the baseball field or some parts of the greens of this campus have always been a garden of some sort. Not necessarily a community garden, not necessarily, we just knew that we had green space and that we had a neighborhood that was low income, and we knew that there was a way to meet that food gap. So today we're going to talk about that. I'm Dr. Amy Blansit. I'm with the Drew Lewis Foundation and faculty at Missouri State. And today I'm going to have our guest introduce her and share with us the mission of the Springfield Community Gardens.
Yes, hello. My name is Anneliese Kerr. I am the Outreach and Volunteer Coordinator for Springfield Community Gardens. Our mission at Springfield Community Gardens is to grow a community where everybody has access to healthy local food. And so you're right on point, bringing gardening back to the community in a way that brings food to those who are generally underserved.
Awesome. So like I said from the very beginning, one of the first partners we had in this idea of a community hub has been the Springfield Community Gardens. One of the neighbors who lived up the street came to me and was like, hey, you have a lot of space and I like to grow stuff, and there's this group that has started, and they had also started another small garden several blocks away. And so it was awesome because it meant that of the 2 acres we had, 10,000 square feet was not only managed, I didn't have to mow it, I didn't have to worry about it, but it also was that people were here and putting their hands in the ground. They were becoming a part of this community, and if someone else wandered onto the property, they felt ownership, or they also were engaging them, like, hey, do you know what this place is? You have nothing to do today? Well, come here and start working with us. So can you explain kind of what the mission means? What is Springfield Community Gardens, and what do they bring to this community and so many more?
Yeah, absolutely. So Springfield Community Gardens started about 12 years ago now in 2010. Again, seeing that there is a big gap within Springfield between individuals that do have access to food regularly and between individuals that don't. And we find that throughout Springfield there are areas that are more food insecure. There are areas that are considered food deserts. So individuals that live in those areas don't have access to, healthy local food. And so seeing that need, seeing that divide, it, became the mission of our executive director 12 years ago to start putting in gardens to, make sure that individuals have access to the food that's so necessary for healthy living.
Absolutely. So yeah, Miley is who she's talking about, the executive director. And Miley is not afraid to get her hands dirty and loves digging in the soil. And so it's been amazing to have that partnership. And we were a new organization, very, at the same time, really working on grant writing and growing together. So it's been amazing to see how far Springfield Community Gardens has come. So how many different gardens do you manage across the area?
Yeah, and it's important to note at this point that we kind of have 2 different pieces of our organization. So over Springfield, we have 17 community gardens, but at the same time, we have 4 farm incubators, which, are very similar. They serve similar populations, but are also a way for us to encourage farming and gardening in younger generations. And so overall, we have 21. It kind of fluctuates year after year. But yes, the majority of them are in kind of the City Council District Zone 1 in the underserved neighborhoods, but they are kind of spread around town.
Now, you guys have added a really great initiative that we kind of use the packing shed here, which we'll talk about in a bit, but you use the model model and the idea that you practice here for an amazing partnership that's happening with Cox Health.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening within that company?
Yeah, absolutely. So now I guess 2 to 3 years ago, we were awarded some federal funding to build, it will eventually, fingers crossed, be a 25-acre farm on the Cox South property. And the idea behind this farm is to, work in partnership with Cox to encourage healthier nutrition. We find in areas in Springfield that, chronic illness is very much diet related. So, factors of obesity, high blood pressure, a lot of these things are diet and nutrition related. And, the point of this program is to, allow individuals that have these chronic illnesses, that have these, diet related risks, to afford them the opportunity to have healthy local produce kind of at their fingertips, but also to give them the opportunity to learn more about how to make that a sustainable change for their lifestyle.
Absolutely. So what you're kind of referring to is known as, the idea of urban gardening.
Yes.
So we typically think of, or often we don't think of, where our food comes from.
Right, yeah.
Right? It's just something that shows up at the grocery store and it came from a truck from somewhere.
Yep.
And so gardening happens in farms, and it happens in like Iowa and Kansas or northern Missouri, right?
Yes.
Not here and around Springfield. And so when we really start thinking about all the things that it took for the food to get made and then to travel here, not only is it environmental and so many other things that go into that, but it's so important to start knowing where our food comes from, and no better way than the idea of urban gardening.
Yes.
So obviously the name should explain what it means,
Right.
but share with our audience what really does urban gardening mean? If I grow some tomatoes in my backyard, am I urban gardening, or do I have to have my entire yard full in order to be considered an urban gardener?
Right. Well, I think that, the answer to that, there are many different forms of urban gardening. Of course, there's kind of a community aspect. I think, the idea of urban gardening is that we are redirecting, like you said, from these major farms in Iowa or Kansas or Nebraska or wherever, we're redirecting a lot of that monoculture, growing only corn or wheat or soy. We're redirecting that to a method that's healthier for the earth. It's a regenerative technique, as we say. But also, we're redirecting it so that it's a more sustainable model for individuals. Food security and food insecurity, it's not something that you can rely on all the time. We may consider, I might consider myself food secure day to day, but if something were to happen in a farm in Iowa, that would change overnight.
And we're experiencing those supply chain changes, and how what we were so used to having is no longer there when we're relying from all these different. So how can we bring that local to make sure we have more control?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's bringing it back, into your own backyard or into your community center, in a way where you have more reliance on, a healthy, stable food system.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I grow some in my backyard, not as much as I want.
Same here.
But what I love about having the connection with Springfield Community Gardens, I live in a neighborhood that the garden is right across the street from me. Intentionally, I've moved to a place where all of this amazing things are happening. And it's awesome to be like, hey, I need some good soil. And I know that the gardens here, not all gardens are able to do this, but here specifically, because it's a market garden, we don't have the same community control, or the community hands in it, so that we can control what goes out. But it's still amazing that I know if I need soil, or I need certain things, or I need education, just across the street is there.
Yes.
So learning and the education part is so important. And even some of the families we work with at the Drew Lewis Foundation have gone through the Apprenticeship Program. Can you tell us a little bit about that Apprenticeship Program?
Yeah, absolutely. And so it kind of goes back to the overall mission of the gardens. I mean, it's creating a sustainable model for individuals to grow their own food if they'd like. So, and like I say, there are kind of a number of different facets that go into this. So the idea behind the Apprenticeship Program is to address not only those food security and food insecurity issues, but also to address issues within kind of the agriculture industry, right? So fewer and fewer individuals are going into agriculture to become farmers or gardeners, but at the same time, the average age of America's farmers is getting older and closer to retirement age. So the idea of our apprenticeship program is to use one-on-one mentorship techniques with Springfield Community Gardens farm team not only to provide individuals with the knowledge and the experience to grow their own tomatoes or cucumbers in their backyard, but in a way where if it's their goal, they can, acquire land. We can set up with USDA resources, USDA funding, help them to rent a tractor, all of these different tools and infrastructure, so that they can, if it's their goal, start their own farm and kind of, factor into the sustainability of a healthy food system.
That's amazing. And especially that system. That's one thing that I know Miley was always working on is how do we create kind of that collective knowledge? So if you want to start, you're not having to start from ground zero. Right. You have this amazing group that can help you in those areas. But then more importantly of the equipment or those sort of things that become very expensive or costly. And so having that network of local farmers, small farmers is so important. And then again, they can work together. If you're growing an abundance of, because Lord knows if we have good weather here, everyone has tomatoes and cucumbers to give away. So maybe we can kind of coordinate who's growing what so that someone else has the dill and the basil that we can make, the full-on salad or meal out of the items. But that coordination is amazing, and it really helps individuals have that confidence to move forward.
Thank you for listening to Enrichment Today, brought to you by the Drew Lewis Foundation. At the Drew Lewis Foundation, we educate, empower, and support underserved families through personalized programs and coaching to increase the quality of life and build resilient communities. If you like Enrichment Today, make sure to follow Enrichment Today and Drew Lewis Foundation on social media. And now, back to the show.
Now, I had mentioned that here we built a packing shed. So it was in the middle of COVID shutdown, and we had it turned out a month to get it done. And we had Williams Construction came in and amazing, put it up in 6 weeks. And so it's been quite a learning experience. And that was an amazing grant. We were the one and only who had received specific funds like this from the state of Missouri in order to look at how much food can we grow on just 10,000 square feet.
Yes.
And we've decreased that footprint by building the pack shed. So now really the growing area is maybe 7,000 square feet. But when you have the capacity to properly handle and chill, how much is being grown on just that very small footprint now that we have the packing shed to process properly?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think, we're still able to grow an incredible amount of produce. I want to say last year in 2021, our farm team grew somewhere around 53,000 pounds of produce, which is incredible. And the packing shed truly, knowing that we have multiple farm sites as well, it's kind of become a central hub for processing and packaging. And so it's given us the opportunity to expand our efforts, expand, where we're able to grow, as now we have the opportunity to process, package, and hold these items until either they're donated or if they're put in our CSA program, or any number of things. It's given us a lot of opportunity to kind of build out these programs in a more controlled manner.
Yeah. It's been amazing to see this growth because before, if they were harvesting, they had to get it immediately.
Yes.
24 hours, otherwise it was wilted. And so now to be able to just refrigerate, having a large walk-in chiller really changes the capacity to now refrigerate, store, and reach more individuals.
Oh, right. You're absolutely right. And I think, something that's really interesting about, the difference between the produce that we grow and now being able to hold it is that, it's not like after 2 days it's going to go bad in the fridge. No, our produce lasts 2-3 weeks oftentimes. And so it doesn't usually last that long because it's either given or sold
eaten,
or whatever.
or
eaten, exactly. Yeah. And so, but now we have that opportunity to hold it until we have a path, again, to donate or to sell or whatever.
Or to make amazing quiches.
100%. Delicious quiches.
Yes. So that's awesome, looking at value-added, product. And that's a big thing in the nonprofit world, is looking at social entrepreneurship in ways that instead of always having to find the next grant and chase the dollars, being able to do things like use the food to either sell in a CSA so that individuals from the community are getting fresh food in a variety, or to be able to make things like these spinach quiches and locally made, locally grown, to where there's just also an amazing flavor and amazing nutrition in it. Yes. So share with us a little bit, the growing part's great and the idea of community, but there is a major difference in food that we buy in the grocery store that's been shipped here from wherever and mass produced versus hands-on, small process, organically grown.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about the difference in nutrition and the value that it provides our body.
Absolutely. And I think the easiest way to kind of explain or describe this is, thinking about like a tomato, for example. So whenever you go to the grocery store, the tomato is almost white on the inside. It looks like a tomato on the outside. It's bright red, but when you cut into it, it's hard and it's crunchy and it's not, very appealing to eat. And at the same time, there's not a lot of nutrition in it. Whereas whenever you've grown it organically and it's stayed on the vine up until, it's a bright red and ready to harvest and eat, the nutrition that is in that tomato is way more than when it's picked bright green and then ripens in the grocery store. And it's made a huge impact on, there is a huge impact on our bodies. The nutrition is very much there and it's so important. And, being able to provide your body with all of this organic produce, it's a huge dietary change that's so important to healthy living.
And I grew up on a farm, and my mornings were spent like picking rocks and weeds and all of those things before I could do anything fun. And so I grew up tasting real food.
Yes.
Like real food.
Yes.
And it's amazing to me when individuals will get a locally grown farm fresh tomato or a peach or just anything, and they're amazed about the food has flavor. It's different. The texture is different.
Yeah.
I'm like, how have you lived your whole life eating, I don't know, eating what? And then, internally, what is that doing? So the disease process we know is so far advanced that chronic disease is greatly influenced. And that cliche, you are what you eat.
Exactly.
And eat local, you're going to be so much more fulfilled.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I think I remember I remember my first time eating like a real strawberry. I went and picked strawberries on the farm, and it was like the juiciest thing. I was like, there is no way that this is what strawberries taste like. Yeah. This couldn't be, because I was eating grocery store strawberries for so long. But yeah, and you think, of all the chemicals and things that are put on, the monoculture, industrial agriculture, grown crops, the difference, just in that, it's killing so many things. But whenever you have the organic and locally grown, not only are you supporting your own local food hub and your local system, but you're putting that back into your body. Yeah. And it's making a huge difference from the inside out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the nutritional value matters so much when we're looking at just the food, the quality, and it really can have an influence. So let's talk a little bit about money. So I know that there is the perception that I can't afford to eat local. I can't afford to buy, the farmer's market. I love going to the farmer's market, but it's almost like you have to dress up to go to the farmer's market, and you have to like go get your dog the right little tutu to wear. And it's a sometimes it's almost like the parade of. It's a ton of fun. It's a social event, but my goodness, it also can be so expensive.
Yes.
And so for individuals that are looking for the organic, locally grown, the other thing we have to get used to is there is more nutritional value. Yes. There is more per item.
Yes.
And so that expense is there because it isn't just a crop dusted, fast. So the price is warranted for sure.
Yes, 100%.
But what are ways that individuals can find items that are affordable, or what are ways that we can kind of stretch the dollar and still get locally grown organic produce?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, my first immediate answer would be reaching out to Springfield Community Gardens.
Good answer.
Yeah, right. Well, and I think, there are a number of local farms, especially in this area, that, a lot of us, our mission is to support the community. And, like you said, there is a higher dollar amount associated with it, but at the same time, whenever you buy local, you are supporting a farmer. And that farmer might be your neighbor, it might be your best friend, and so it is important to consider. But I think there are a number of ways that you can stretch your dollar, and one of those ways as well is to work, grow your own.
Or volunteer.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great point too, because many of our community gardens and many of our farm incubators as well, if you come to volunteer, chances are you'll get sent home with something.
Yeah.
And so, reaching out to, any of your area farmers or organizations like this, because we are, that's our mission, is to work with you and to make sure that you all have healthy food to eat.
Absolutely. And some of the gardens, so there, like you mentioned, there's different types of gardens within Springfield Community Gardens. There are the market gardens that are more employees are running those. There are some volunteers, and then the individuals in the apprenticeships. But many of the community gardens, if you don't have the community and you don't have the volunteers that are coming and growing and then taking the food as a part of that volunteer, you don't have a community garden.
Exactly.
So that's so important for individuals who are trying to find a way that they can get involved, that they can afford this food. Go volunteer.
Yes.
And it's amazing too, just the healing component of being involved in the soil, the neighbors. Can you share a little bit about, there's amazing research that's out there about what getting involved in your community through gardening actually creates?
Yeah, no, there are a number of, benefits to social gardening and community gardening. I mean, of course, there's an economic impact, there's the nutritional benefit. The social impact is that, especially in this world of COVID that we're living in now, community gardens kind of can serve as like a third place or a third space. And that space is not your home. It's not your work. It's somewhere else that you can go as an escape.
Yeah.
Whenever, all of these things, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, all of these things are happening. It's a way to get out of what's going on and to use it as a therapeutic space. I mean, we all know the research shows that being out in the sun and being in the dirt is, super healthy for your physical well-being and your mental well-being. And so using these community gardens, can impact, of course, your nutrition, but also just your mental and physical well-being by being outside.
Absolutely. Well, and then also with the idea of COVID, you are outside, and so, you can
Exactly.
stay separate from individuals. You can even mask and be outdoors and still get that social context that you're needing. I've got friends who are have in the past been garden leaders. They are retired and they have some of their social niches, but they were really noticing that they were in retirement isolating.
Yes.
And so we see a lot of older individuals or just people who maybe you moved to a new neighborhood and you don't know your neighbors yet.
Right.
Finding and seeking out that local gardening initiatives really can reduce that social isolation as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a number of individuals that reach out every year because, they've just moved to the neighborhood and they want to, a lot of our gardens as well are associated with the neighborhood associations or neighborhood alliances. And it's a great way for individuals who are new to the area or are feeling a little bit of isolation to get out and talk to people that are around them and individuals that are like-minded as well. I mean, we're all here because we like to garden. Right. And so it's a really great way to kind of get out in a more social manner.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, you get to often walk away with really great value and nutritional items.
Definitely.
So any last things that you want to share when people ask you, what do you do? And you say, I work in a community garden, right?
Yeah.
So what is it that's so important to you? What is it that draws you in and that makes you proud to work for this company?
I think the thing that makes me most proud is that we get to make a difference. You hear on the news, on the radio all the time about these things that are happening and you want to get out and help. And this is one of the most direct ways to do it, is to get out, either volunteer your time, go through an internship or an apprenticeship program. I mean, it is truly one of the best ways to make a difference, not only in your small community, but in, the scale of a global food system. We're bringing it back to our backyard. And it's so important for, continuing our, healthy social environments, but also, a healthy ecosystem.
Absolutely, for sure. So if someone wants to learn more or they want to volunteer, how do we find Springfield Community Gardens? How do we get involved?
Absolutely. So I'd say the best way is to go to the springfieldcommunitygardens.org website. We have a number of our programs that are listed on there. There's some great ways that you can get involved. And then we also have a direct link. It'll direct actually to me. So if somebody's interested, they can fill out a form and then I'll email them back within just a few hours. And so that's the best way to reach out to us. But at the same time, we're We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, Instagram. And so, searching Springfield Community Gardens and just sending us an email is, we'd love to get to know you and to work with you.
Awesome. But it's an amazing company to partner with, the Drew Lewis Foundation. It's been one of our longest standing partners. Mm-hmm. The Pack Shed was a partnership in the grant that we had written to really bring nutrition and change and value to the 2 acres that we have here. And it's amazing, not only is it economically efficient to not mow and to have them manage our lawn and make us look amazing, but the partnership has been such value in so many other ways, to the members, to getting fresh produce, to the families that we serve. It's something that I am very proud of, and it's so much an honor to continue to work hand in hand with Springfield Community Gardens here at the Fairbanks. So I want to thank our listeners. I want to thank you for being here with us today. If you're interested in more information, do make sure to reach out to Springfield Community Gardens. We'll make sure to include information in all of our material as well. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Enrichment Today podcast. If you liked this episode, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And visit our websites enrichmenttoday.org and drewlewis.org. Until next time, remember to break some crayons.